Okay, so in part 3, I just want to cover a few more notational things about Staffpad and give some tips and tricks. So if you want to do, like, let's say dotted notes, it's pretty simple. You just draw. If you want to do like different rhythms, so for instance, if you wanted to do an eighth note, I would draw 2 eighth notes, put a dot after the first eighth note and a line to make this a 16th note, and you get your dotted note. So another thing I want to bring up is 16th notes. They're a little tricky. You can try drawing them one by one. Doesn't always work for me for some reason. So my tip is to draw more than one. So draw 2, then erase 1. Now, if you want to do a different rhythm, different rhythms, you have to draw a 16th note rest. And then, you would draw two 16th notes, and so on and so forth. So that's my tip for entering notes. Now, I want to point out the fact that you can change the note duration after you draw it. So for instance, if I draw a quarter note, I can press on the note, and if I drag it to the left, it gets smaller. If I drag it to the right, it gets bigger. So these are things you can do. The note, you have flexibility once the note is drawn. So the next thing I want to get into is sharps and flats. So I'm going to do a 16th note, or not even a 16th note. I'm just going to do a chromatic passage so you can see how sharps and flats work. It's pretty simple. So now let's say I'm doing a chromatic passage. Let's say I'm starting on C and I'm going to D flat. So I put the note on D, and then I draw a flat symbol. And let's say I want to go to D natural, so I have to draw the natural sign. So you would draw it. It helps to know what these things look like so you can kind of draw them. So practice drawing the symbols that you're trying to draw in Staffpad. So let's say I'm going to an E flat. I would draw a flat. I'm going to F. Now let's say I'm going to F sharp. I would draw a sharp symbol, like a tic-tac-toe. G, and let's say, G sharp. So there's your chromatics. So the next thing I want to get into is voicings. So it's pretty simple. In the upper left corner of the screen, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are your 4 voices. So, of course, you're starting out in voice 1. So let's say you're doing a downward lick. In voice 1. So let's say you're going from F to E to, let's say, B flat to A. But in the same hand, you want to hold down, let's say, the F note. So you would go to voice 2 and you would draw your F note, and your voice 2 is green. So each voice is a different color. So now you have your 2 voices. So you got your... So now I want to get into some of the other things. Well, let me go across the top. You have your voices. You can draw. If you click on this, you can highlight, use highlighting. I don't really use that too much. You got your Lasso tool, which you can use to copy and paste. So let's say I wanted to copy this measure again. I would circle the measure, and then I could just tap into the next bar, and it will automatically paste, and it'll paste over and over again. Now to deselect your lasso, you just hit the deselect button, which is this dotted square with the arrow. So unfortunately, it didn't pick up the second voice, so I would have to go to the second voice. I would have to lasso it, and then I would have to put it into the next measures. So deselect it. Now, along with, that's the lasso tool. So here is, I don't really use this. You can edit your rhythms with this. I don't really use this. And you have a metronome here if you want to have a metronome. So, but I don't really use these too much. So I'm not going to go into that. I'm mainly focusing on how to draw the music notation into your score. So this is an important icon here. It gives you other options you can do once you put notes into your score. So for instance, say you want to do a trill. Let me go to voice 1. So let's say I'm doing a trill. So I would tap on the trill icon, and I would tap on the note, and it would give me a trill. And you can edit the trill. You can change this note, can bring it up or down. So you have all these options here. You can do mordents, turns, tremolos, different tremolos, a gliss, portamento, arpeggios, hairpins, octave up, octave down, I'm not sure what these are. I think these are for stringed instruments. You have your different accents, but you can draw in some of these. Now, like let's say you want to do grace notes. Let's say you're doing a lick and you're starting here. Now let's say you're going to do a lick. Doesn't really matter. I'm just doing this for an example. But let's say I'm going to do a lick to an E note. So what I would do is you could pick your grace note style. So it should play back. I'm not going to go through every one of these. You have your repeats and your endings. But let's say you want to change note heads. Let's just say I'm doing a lick and I want to emphasize the chord tones on the beats. And let's say for whatever the reason, I want to put brackets around the main beats. So I would just select the bracket symbol and enter it on the notes. Bar endings. So if you put your finger on the bar, you can change the bar line and you get these choices. So single, double, repeat. So you enter your repeat. Add second ending. And so on and so forth. Final. Tying notes is very simple. You just draw a line, connect the two notes, and there's your tie. And I want to point out that if you go to the control, this gear looking thing, it's got Staffpad help. You got interactive tutorials, contact support. So anything that I didn't cover, if you do decide to get the program, you just click on Staffpad help and it brings you to their, how to use this program. And I want to cover other ways to copy and paste, so it's pretty easy. When you use your finger and you double tap on a measure, it'll turn a bluish color. And you get options. You get your delete, cut, paste, copy, and you get these options over here. So for instance, if I wanted to copy that measure, I could copy it and then paste it up here if I wanted to. And it pastes both voices, unlike the Lasso tool. If let's say I want to add a measure here, I would press this button here. It adds a measure, a blank measure. If I wanted to delete that measure, I would press the X and it would take the measure out. And then you have these other options. This is a transpose option. So you would just pick your option here, how to transpose it. This changes the stem direction. And I believe this swaps the voices. So it'll probably put the whole note on voice 1, and the other notes on voice 2. So that's what those symbols are for. And of course you have your undo on this side. So that's only when you highlight a bar. Now if you wanted to select your whole score, you would press this square here and it would select the whole entire score. When your score is complete, you click on this arrow and that's how you export your score. You can print it as a PDF, an audio, an MX music, XML, a MIDI, a template, a score, a Staffpad score. So those are your options. When you print as a PDF, you get to choose your paper size and you have some options on you get a preview and then you have some options on how the score will appear. So for instance, bar numbering by the system, by the bar, every 2 bars. You have maximum number of bars per line. So you have these options. You can have 4, 6, or auto. I guess it figures out, I would do 4. You have some control over how the score will appear when it's printed. Not ultimate ability, but you do have some. So this concludes my 3 parts on how to use Staffpad with some tips and tricks. Now, Staffpad doesn't do everything. For instance, it doesn't have guitar chord diagrams or tabulature, and you can't put fingerings into the score. But it does do a lot in the way of traditional music notation. I really like it for when I'm on the go and I want to write down ideas or transcribe something. So that's it for this episode, and we'll see you next time.